and further in.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
Welcome, everybody. This is Team Rabbit Hole edition 321 with Arabella Thaïs, Curating Vibes. Welcome, everybody.
I totally butchered the pronunciation of her name and so did you. You might want to just tell us, and we can get into that in a second. It's Thaïs, right?
Yeah, correct.
All right, cool. We'll geek out on that in a second. So yeah, it is episode 321 contact with Arabella Thaïs, Curating Vibes. Like you said, Aesthete, thinker, traveler, Leo. Join the team as we get to know Arabella, a highly educated philosopher and mystic whose forays into culture, metaphysics, science, and beauty tickle the imagination and stir the soul. So before we get too deep into it, I tend to pull cards, and not tend to, I always pull cards for the episodes, and we got the Hermit card, but in this deck it's the Alien card, which it's got a little Kubrickian black monolith looking portal behind him, and it says, I bring back knowledge from distant places. This is about knowing your worth. You're perfect the way you are, being free, seeking answers within you, going deeper and understanding more of the universe, and taking the time to do something you've never done before. And is there anything that resonates? I was going to start geeking out on my own 2 cents on there, but is there anything with that card that pops for you or resonates, synchronizes, anything like that?
Oh my god, hugely. Well, first of all, just like the archetype of the hermit is deeply resonant because I'm an academic. I also heard the word freedom mentioned there, which is huge for me and my life's work and what I believe to be the fundamental structure of the universe, i.e. that it is moving towards ever greater iterations of freedom. You also mentioned taking information from sort of far reaches of the universe and bringing it back. Yeah, totally. That's like completely my vibe, man. That's very much what I feel like I'm doing or endeavoring to do, is to sort of plumb the depths of the universe, and gather information and disseminate information and help sort of create a harmonic bridge between different dimensions of the universe.
And dare I say, you do it really well. I know you're a Leo, but you have a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I had your chart up. I can't find it now. You got Jupiter in Cancer. I mean, you're mystical. It seems like you get inspired and you're like on fire for life. And then you're like running around telling people, it's almost like a positivism of Chicken Little. It's like the sky isn't falling. It's a fractal. Oh my gosh, guys, wake up. So everything I've ever heard in terms of your podcast and your content, which I think my girlfriend turned me on to you like a year or two ago, has been highly illuminating, and your Team Rabbit Hole is fuck for sure, 1,000%. So, curious. I know you're British, but you tend to travel a lot. You're currently in Switzerland and stuff. Take us through the paces a little. Like, how did you formulate your culture? What were you a part of in terms of family life? And, when did you start realizing your interest in literature and beauty and thinking more deeply than the typical layman?
So yeah, I grew up in London. I'm a Londoner. And my interest in literature, since you mentioned it, occurred very, very early on. I would say my relationship with words and meaning sort of started as young as 2 years old. I remember coming back from like my pre-prep school nursery, when you're taught to sort of read and write, and writing my name for the first time. I was 2, almost 3, and I just learned the letters of the alphabet, and I wrote my name for the first time. And I remember having that sort of kind of a revelatory experience of selfhood. right? Through the architecture, through the shape of the letters on the page, the cadence and the sound. And it sort of instigated this really complex and beautiful nexus in my being between letters, words, sound, meaning, and all the associated senses that they conjure, and how they allow us to experience reality and then share that reality with others. So I started reading quite soon after that, and I found literature and stories and books to be a tremendous source of solace, right? Of
your own little hermitage, in a sense.
Yeah, well, here's the thing: is that ideas are endlessly generative. They don't have a beginning, a middle, or an end. So for me, it wasn't just a kind of conventional story, like a narrative-driven story. Therein began my relationship with ideas. Ideas are never-ending; they're eternal, and they also can't hurt you. So some of my early experiences in life were adverse and quite painful. And I found that books, ideas, literature was my safe space. So yeah, I mean, I could go on, but that's
Feel free. I mean, a little like I just showed Lord of the Rings to my girlfriend. She's never seen it. I've read the books Narnia. I mean, I'm into Warhammer 40K novels. Literature is one of the devices that really plots us in. Like you said, on the one hand, it's like a joke can have a punchline, so it's like there's a point to it, or like Aesop fable or something. There's kind of like this like higher kind of condensed gnosis in the thing, but the way one participates with it in the river of one's own experience of life changes. So you're never looking at the artwork or experiencing the archetypes the same ever, really. So what were some of the things that really turned you on as a kid? Like story-wise, were you a Narnia geek or
story-wise? Yeah, no, fantasy, 100%. I love fantasy. I truly believe that fantasy and sci-fi are able to communicate sort of deeper truths about the nature of reality than something more realist. Because I believe a lot of these worlds really exist, you know. They also tend to be more archetypally potent, and they plumb the imagination, right? I believe also, like someone like William Blake, that the imagination is all, that the ground of reality is imaginative. And I don't just mean our imagination. I mean that this universe is the cosmic imagination birthing itself into being. Like, this is a cosmic dream. And any site of literature, any literary work that can communicate that or portray that in whatever means is somehow capturing the truth in a very deep way. But there's many different ways and means that truth can be communicated. Like, I also read a lot of philosophy. Like one of my earliest books was like philosophy for kids. You know, it was taking these quite complex ideas from Socrates or Nietzsche and breaking it down so that a child could understand it. You know, and I remember them being really excited. I was just really excited about ideas, and it wasn't sort of long after that I began to appreciate beautiful literature. So not just the communication of a story, but the nature of artistic, aesthetic beauty, especially as portrayed or presented through the medium of literature, through words. So yeah,
it's funny because on the one, it's like kind of a paradox. On the one hand, like everything's all good, so it's like whatever, you know, C-Spot Run has got profundity in it or whatever. But at the same time, like there does seem to be a value of and I'm not sure if it's a platonic form or what, but it seems like we know when something's more important or has more density or is revealing more. So like people aren't arguing Babe Ruth is the best, you know, whatever the thing is. Like Shakespeare, he's so potent and is condensed and it's got so much. That's not to detract from other literature particularly, but there seems to be a portaling or some kind of drawing from the muses or something that is alchemical in such a way that it actually necessarily changes those who come into contact with it. Kind of like the Black Monolith in 2001. So not everybody's going to feel compelled to like watch Lord of the Rings or read it or whatever, because that's a, you know, a heavy, especially in this ADD technological age, kind of getting basted or whatever, you know, getting really full into something is kind of almost a lost art, it feels. and it seems like you've done your due diligence in terms of just kind of basting in culture and beauty. So okay, so you were turning on to thinking and the profundity of thinking and the beauty of not just logic, although you're highly logical, you're into physics and stuff like that, philosophy, but also the kind of story of things. So were you raised in a religious home, or was it secular? Like, what was the worldview that was coming in like at that?
It was completely secular, my upbringing. It was devoid of any meaning or paradigm or framework or sort of philosophical guidance. What my mother, and I grew up in a single parent household, what my mother did cultivate, and I'm very grateful to her for this, was curiosity. She really encouraged me to question things, and to not be frightened to do so. So just to kind of give you a picture of the kind of like child that I was. When I was 6 years old, we were in a religious studies class in my school. I didn't go to religious schools. They were like Christian Protestant in a sort of secular way, in a sort of tokenistic way. So our religious studies class was simply teaching us about different religions, scriptures, etc. And we were looking at Genesis and the Bible. And this was my first encounter of Christian scripture. And the teacher was simply writing it on the blackboard as it's written, which obviously refers to a male God, the Holy Father. And he taught us that we write God as he with a capital H, and his with a capital H. And I just naturally wrote she. I just changed the he to a she. And I refused to alter that. And I just said to him, I was like, why would God? I said, babies come out of women's bodies. Why would God be a man? I'm 6 years old. And so the teacher's like calling my mom. It's like a whole foray because I won't sort of obey. And I'm asking questions. So that's kind of setting the tone. I've been expelled from 3 schools, I was always highly academic and succeeded, like grade A student, but I defied authority at every turn if I did not understand it or respect it.
Right.
That's just in my nature.
Yeah, I think your Uranus is conjunct your Neptune and Capricorn, which is more generational planets. I don't have your chart up. I got to pull it up so I can keep referencing it kind of casually. But yeah, so it's like you're here to not only shock the world and the systems that exist, but shock them into a deeper, because Venus is, Neptune's the higher octave of Venus. So it's like a more spiritually resounding truth. Cultures for what, it's like a pendulum and everybody's kind of orienting towards the pendulum a little differently. So on the one hand, you want to inculcate people with like ways of being that work, coming from, whatever Stone Age chaos or however you're modeling this, even if there's a high Atlantis thing. We fell into a yuga or something where it's like we forgot what it means and we're all at each other's throats and we're survivalists. So there's probably better, thou shalt not kill or something is like a good idea. But then people kind of like in the Christian idea is like they've lost the spirit of the thing and they maintain the structure without the juice running it. So it's almost like a corpse. It seems like you're naturally going to have this heart to pierce that veil and like you said, kind of be a wrecking ball in your own way. But I don't think you're doing it just to be tetchy or something like that. I think it's more that you want to be enraptured by the truth as opposed to like submitting to a rule. I think you want to play with reality just based off your chart, it looks like. So I mean, you're a Leo. It's all about play and what lights you up. So that's funny that you've been expelled 3 times, because you do strike me as a very and I'm sure you've been told this, like a Hermione Granger type. You're very academic, you're very knowledgeable and intuitive with the application of that knowledge. Like you're wise, like that's a weird way to put it. I don't tend to like point that finger, but everything I've heard you utter has humility, but it's back with kind of a conviction, which is something that I think everybody should try to pursue. Know thyself. And it seems like even though it's a mystery that's unfolding and you're playing with it, that you're being led forward. We can get in kind of the teleological implications of that at some point. But all right, so you grew up in a single family home, you're geeking out and kind of bucking the system, but doing it in a way that probably is not, you're not Molotov cocktailing the teacher's lounge or whatever. So when did you start? I had heard on another podcast that you kind of got a download that you're like, I need to go for a PhD. What was your ambition or your identity kind of fixated around up until that point?
The earliest thing I can remember that I really wanted to do was to be a harpist. So I played the harp when I was a child. Yeah, I really wanted to be a harpist, just because I remember the first time I heard someone playing the harp, it was like the most celestial, beautiful music I'd ever heard. That was like relatively short-lived. I would say until I was about age 10, then I sort of realized I didn't have an aptitude for music really, although I deeply appreciate music, but I'm not a musician.
Right.
Then I think I wanted to be a movie star. I've always had that very leonine tendency towards, like, I wanted to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I sort of wanted to.
We're both Leo
be in
rising,
amongst-
so I think we get it, albeit very
Yeah.
differently. But yeah, no, it's like it's not narcissism. It's just like I want to live fully as a self. Check me out. Hey, I mean, because the idea is like Cancer, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a thing, yay, and then it kicks over to the next kind of elements or whatever. So the second iteration of fire is, you know, Aries, then Leo. So the Aries is just like an ego that's just like Tasmanian devil. It doesn't really have a foundation of self beyond impulse. And then when you get to Leo, it's like megazording. It's like, I know I'm a thing. Behold what I am.
Right.
And so, you know, and that kind of confidence and I mean, whenever I give readings, astrology readings, I'm like, it's the character of the zodiac. You can be Darth Vader or whatever, Abraham Lincoln or whatever you want, but at some point you have to be stirred at your heart level to be inspired towards an end of moral frameworks, you know, whatever a character is, I guess, in some weird way. Anyway, I'm
it's
rambling.
main character energy. I would say it's just main character energy. Like, I knew I wasn't in the chorus. That's all I'm saying. I just knew I wasn't in the chorus. I was like supposed to be up there in like with like a main character role, you know. But
Yeah,
I think part of my deep existential anguish was feeling that like that cosmic architecture within me, that template, if you will, and then not knowing what it was and not knowing what it was about and having no meaning and no framework, right? But I had this like light, this like fire burning within me that was incinerating me from the inside. It was just like this vital life force. And I knew I wanted to be out there in amongst it, but it was like, but to do what and for what, you know?
Right. What's the mission? I've got all this ammo, but where's the battlefield kind of vibe?
Right. And that was incredibly painful and incredibly difficult for me. And so to go back to what you were saying about well, you mentioned or alluded to another podcast I was on where I referenced my like my awakening, right, to my teleology and like who I was and this like great remembering. And yeah, realizing I was supposed to do a PhD, and it was like so obvious once I realized that. And then that was sort of the beginning of my journey, really, of like I'd left the cave at that point, because up until then I was inside of the cave of illusions. Like I didn't know, like I forgot everything of where, like, who and what we really are as human beings. Yeah, that this is a non-linear, multidimensional reality, and that this life is not it. This is just like one fragment of a holographic, like dream, like jewel, like cosmic jewel. So that I didn't have that remembering until I was 27. The year
Saturn return.
It literally was 1 week into my Saturn returns that I woke up and was like, I'm supposed to do a PhD.
Right. Well, when I guess, you know, when the calling comes, it comes. So I mean, you're alluding to the fact that you were ignorant in the Platonic cave kind of analogy here, or, you know, plugged in the matrix, or however you want to put it. But I do think your chains were not as bound. I mean, obviously you've been like kind of like, you have a questioning spirit and are plotting your escape, even though you didn't know there was daylight, so to speak, outside. You're like, there's more to the picture than meets the eye. I kind of try to live, but I don't try, I'm a Gemini, but it's like between the Pink Floyd, all you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. There seems to be a very real thing about experience being a primary informer. So, you know, your senses are not lying to you beyond a point. So what's happening is happening. But at the same time, the Neil Young thing where it's like there's more to the picture than meets the eye. So it's like this weird conundrum where it's like, we are situated, we are embarked, and yet, you know, the boat you're in on the ocean, there's more of an ocean than you thought. It's not just the tributary you're on. So it can be very humbling. So I mean, we can fast forward all the way to your Saturn return if you want. What was that down? I mean, was it like a voice? Was it just an inclination where you're just like, oh, I'm totally built for this? Like, what was the aha moment?
Well, I think just to kind of speak to what you were just saying, about sensing that there was something more, right? And how manacled I was. what sustained me was beauty. Like, I went out and looked at the starry night sky, or I read Virginia Woolf, and I thought, you know, I touched on something so profound and ineffable and so like ecstatic. So you know that the etymology of the word ecstasy comes from the Greek ekstasis, meaning to be outside of yourself, right? So I believe the superlative aesthetic experience is a state of ecstatic reunion, not just union, but reunion with the source, right? So I was having these highly numinous experiences from a very, very early age, but with no context around them. But the very nature of them was so life enhancing and life giving that it sustained me, because the flip side of this was really, really agonizing existential suffering. I have bipolar. I have a bipolar diagnosis. Like, however you want to like frame what that even is, because we know so little about the human mind, and you know, mental diagnoses can be limiting sometimes. But whatever Virginia Woolf had, I have that.
The
Right?
best of times, the worst of times syndrome.
Yeah, like
I've got it.
Right. The capacity to go from like a 1, like if a mood scale is from a 0 to a 10, where 0 is, you know, you're going to kill yourself, and 10 is you're so high you think you're Jesus Christ, I can go from like a 1 to a 9 in a day. I mean, I'm quite level now, but this is how it used to be. I was just, my moods were completely unregulated. I was feeling so deeply all of the time. There was a lot of unresolved trauma. I just found life very, very difficult, right? I would look around me and be like, why is it so easy for these people? They can hold down a job. They have stable relationships. They're not, you know, terrified all the time. You know, I just felt this sort of looming sense of existential anxiety, just like around me all the time. But then I would also have these profound revelations and moments of insight and rapture that other people also were not having.
Yeah, like a William Blake type.
That,
I mean, in a
anxiety stopped when you turned 27?
Well, it's interesting. It abated. Yes, it was removed, and like I was relieved of it when I had this awakening, in a way that like I've never had to deal with that pain ever again. I've had to deal with pain and suffering, but never that, because when I met cosmic consciousness, I knew I would never be alone again. And do you know what I mean? Once you've remembered,
it's qualitatively different now.
Totally. When you take the red pill, it's like, okay, there's going to be different aspects of struggle or whatever that you have to overcome, but never the existential like abyss.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it wasn't like I turned 27 and I woke up. It was actually a few months after I turned 27, it was the year 2017 to 2018. Right.
Heavy time. I mean, when is it not heavy? But keep going.
Well, it was kind of less heavy than it had been before in a way, because I started having this awakening and I was like, oh, holy shit, thank God. Oh my God, like life is not what it seems. Like, what was I thinking? Because I used to write fan mail to Richard Dawkins. Okay. I was not just an atheist, I was an anti-theist.
Right.
Like, I hated religion. I would pick arguments with like Catholics at dinner tables for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? To like.
So I mean, not to go deep into this too long, was the driver behind that to be correct, or was it to like pop their balloon? Did that make you feel?
Both. I think a bit of both. I think I was sort of at a lower level of consciousness in that moment. So I had all this frustrated energy that wasn't being directed and channeled correctly. So it would go into unnecessary, like debating, but not necessarily in a constructive way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but it wasn't just about needing to be right. I think I also actually wanted to get to the bottom of things. So it was almost like this kind of quest for truth, but at a lower octave.
So it's like a barbaric laboratory in a sense. Like you're doing science, but it's like maybe with a spirit that's a little lower vibration.
So it was it's like the same quest for truth I feel now, but at a lower vibration. Exactly. So I can actually really like sympathize with people like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens or a materialist scientist, because I'm like, I've been there, dude. I get it. That's just where you're at. That's your paradigm. And it's not about shunning or shaming these people. Like, there is a ladder of consciousness and we're all on it. And it's not about judgment or of a value judgment. It's just about trying our best to humbly lead the way. And, you know, it's like putting your hand out to those on this like mountain path, and also us reaching out to those who are ahead of us, right? It's like this chain, this great chain of being.
Well, specific with Dawkins, I feel like he kind of gets entrenched into I mean, ego is unavoidable, but it seems like he's kind of identified with this stoic, I'm not touched by the reins, like kind of bulletproof, atheism. Whereas Sam Harris, I mean, he is an atheist and he has plenty of the same arguments, but he's done psychedelics. So I feel like he's at least way more open and more chill with like, who knows, you know, like he's playing with the ideas a little more loosely. Correct.
Yeah, I actually confronted Richard Dawkins at a festival a few years ago, and he couldn't answer my question, and he actually kind of gave me a really unacceptable response, which I found really disappointing. And part of my question was, would you ever open your mind to there being another possibility to what you believe right now? And he just said no. You have to bear in mind this guy's whole career and identity is built on what he's, you know, so whatever. After he dies, then he'll be like, oh shit.
Yeah, the deathbed DMT trip will be an interesting one for sure.
Since we're on this, how should I say? Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, most likely, and this is only my very rudimentary understanding, we would most likely agree on quite a lot of ontology and conceptualization. Still, I'd like to ask you, for you, what is the evidence, let's say, you have for reality not being a materialist thing? I have, of course, my own ideas about it, but I'd first like to ask you.
Yeah, well, there's multifarious ways of approaching that and answering that question. I think first of all, we need to address the notion of epistemology, which is like, what does it mean to know something, and like, how can we accrue evidence? And I mean, just in terms of science and mathematics, the evidence and proofs, indeed, that this universe is conscious, intelligent, evolving, are sort of incontrovertible. And I'll come to that in a minute, right? So we can just like tackle it from a deeply like rigorous scientific like perspective. But then there's also direct experience, which is completely eschewed and ignored by the mainstream scientific community, who argue that, you know, it's so preposterous, the argument that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of brain activity and is essentially an illusion, an unnecessary illusion. And they're like failing to acknowledge that they're having conversations about the very, you know, this very thing through consciousness itself. They're conducting experiments through consciousness itself, you know. And like you can tell someone who's seen a ghost that ghosts don't exist, but they've seen the fucking ghost. I've had direct encounters with extraterrestrials, which we can come back to later if you want, which is also why that tarot card was
right. No, I heard your trip, but we can get into it. Keep going.
I don't care if someone says to me aliens don't exist. I'm like, your opinion is irrelevant, because I've actually have seen them multiple times and have videos of them. I have videos of UFOs. I've seen UFOs so many times. Like, I don't care what someone says, because I've had direct experience of like these things in the physical world with multiple other people. So to come back to like the scientific evidence of why this universe is intelligent and evolving. So like, first of all, mainstream scientists cannot explain why the universe began, like why it started in the first
one
place.
Miracle, right?
It's like what exactly, yeah. You know, so you know this argument already. It's like, they are like, we can explain everything apart from why the universe started and why life started. So the mathematical probability of RNA, which are these basic amino acids, shuffling about randomly and just randomly, spontaneously, like transmogrifying into DNA and then becoming complex carbon-based life, is the equivalent probability of a gust of wind blowing through a scrapyard and creating a Boeing 747, i.e., it is impossible. It is mathematically impossible. The only reasonable explanation, and it is so lucid and kind of crystalline and beautiful, is that consciousness is inherently embedded within the universe, within the fabric of the universe itself. Therefore, it makes complete sense that when on a particular planet the conditions are correct for carbon-based life, and who's to say there isn't life like that's not carbon-based, yeah, but carbon-based material life within the material realm, when the conditions are correct on a planet, that life would naturally occur, because the universe is primed and designed for life to occur, because that's the whole point of the universe, is for life to evolve and remember itself, because the universe is highly intelligent and highly conscious. We see also intelligence embedded at every single scale of reality. Like if you look at the logarithmic spiral of a seashell,
The
and
Fibonacci for the layman here. Yeah.
Right. But like if you just pick up a seashell, that is a logarithmic spiral. That kind of spiral is logarithmic. So it's like an exponential spiral. Like we live in a spiral galaxy. It's like this, you see these deep mathematical structures fractally echoed everywhere, in this kind of recursive pattern. It's deeply intelligent. Look at the harmonious interplay of all life systems on Earth, all ecosystems. It's all working in such an intelligent, harmonious way. This is incontrovertible proof that the universe is intelligent. It's like not up for debate.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how are we even? Then I haven't even got to quantum mechanics yet. You know. So it's just, you know, it's the notion that this is a mechanical, random universe is silly.
Well, it seems to be a consequence of Descartes and a lot of Western thinking in terms of like we were trying to get away from superstition and in a weird way, a very muted. Postmodernism is like high relativism, but it was almost like that at some point where it's just like every tribe is worshiping a different god and everybody has a different explanation. And I think they were looking for a little more certainty, weights and measures, so to speak. And they were like, look, we can plumb this, we can map it, and that is a good endeavor. You know, you can go out and science is an exploration of reality to try to understand it, but then you can get, like Dawkins, a little stuck in a preconception of things or a model to such a degree that you neuter any other options or don't let them at least inform. So it becomes very sterile. I mean, and even the idea that we can have an objective perspective is like very tricky and problematic. And science is kind of like, look, we're a neutral observer, blah, blah. It's like, as you've alluded to, quantum mechanics is like, look, the observer affects the outcome here and it collapses things on them. I mean, I can't speak about it eloquently, but you know what I'm saying? Like our observation of the thing collapses possibilities into a...
Yeah, the superposition, yeah.
Yeah. So, but to even get to a point where monkeys could jam on that cylinder, so to speak, like in a, Carl Sagan, I think, was like, if maybe it was Hawkins, I forget which now, but either way, it's like, if you want an apple pie, you got to build a universe. It's like, there is a, for better or worse, and maybe we'll never understand the mystery of why, but like the engines of creation seem to have to gear up in such a way to allow, like, you're not going to have a football game if you don't have or soccer to you. You're not going to have a soccer game if you don't have a soccer field. And it's not quite the same thing if you don't have rules. So it's like certain things have to codify. And then they kind of like they breathe. I mean, if you've ever watched a Mandelbrot tour, I don't know, I've done it sober and on acid a bunch. You start seeing the chaos math of things. It's like
there's a Mandelbrot on her website, actually.
Well, then I shouldn't be surprised. Then you get it, where it's just like, look, it looks constant and it can hold the pattern for quite a long time, but there's always flux. And it just goes deeper and deeper. I mean, in the song that was the intro and one of our mantras on here is further up and further in, Reepicheep. It's like, this is a dream that just goes infinitely inward. And as you know, with psychedelics and stuff, it's like, there's no, and this is the weird point, there's like, other than maybe the witnessing self and the Buddha kind of like hub of the wheel thing, there doesn't seem to be a constant moment or anything like that. I don't know if you finished saying what you wanted to, or if Raphael, you felt that was, it met your question. Because I can ramble. I'm a Gemini, so
yeah. So no, there's a lot to unpack here, of course. So I would also have argued, if we go around it the other way around, I'd be like, okay, if it's all materialist, show me the location of consciousness. And at least from the research I did and the few books I read and presentations and all of that, they don't seem to be able to do that whatsoever. So even just from that point of view, it's like, well, and then not being willing or to be open to another possibility, just like you said, it appears there is some sort of a ladder. What I'm, of course, very curious about, because that's a topic I've been also quite heavily into for quite some time and recently revised my perspectives a little bit, the whole alien topic. Because you may be aware that there is a massive amount of psyoping going on there. Also, in regards to what you understand to be NASA and the documentation or information they give you, or whether it's SpaceX, it doesn't matter. Personally, I don't trust any of that. Also, with many different whistleblowers, it's very questionable, like David Wilcock, and there's a few others. It's usually the very popularized ones that most likely have the most issues, or they are not as exact as one could be. So I'd be very curious, what are your experiences and what do you deduce? So let's say both, on the one hand, phenomenologically, what have you perceived? And then also, what is your interpretation of that, and how does that add to your understanding?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really rich question. So I can only speak from my own experience, I don't know about larger agendas with governments and ETs. Like, I know they exist, but I don't claim to know anything about that. My direct experiences occurred primarily in Costa Rica, where I lived for 3 years, on the beach there. And after I'd accumulated these experiences, it seemed to me like I moved to Costa Rica and was called there by these beings, unbeknownst to me, in order to have the experience. So when I first, just to be clear, like, aliens had not been on my radar.
It wasn't your thing. Yeah.
No. Like, I'd always, like, when I heard about crop circles and stuff, I was like, intrigued, but just not on my radar. I hadn't thought about it at all.
Wuthering Heights was taking priority or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, I was just, but like, in terms of, like, I'd had my awakening, but that, I wasn't, the aliens were just not part of what I'd been interested in, what I've been pursuing. And so I had not taken LSD for a long time. I used to take it a lot when I was younger, and then I had a long period I didn't take it because I went into recovery from addiction and stuff. And then I realized I wanted to do psychedelics consciously again. And so I did it right before I moved to Costa Rica with a friend of mine who was coming out with me to help me move. And I took them and we went to, like, the other side, when you, like, can't really talk. We were, like, communicating telepathically. And I was able just to write something down, which, when I kind of came back to, like, material reality, I looked down and I'd written, "The aliens are waiting for us to wake up." And I was like, I don't know what that means, but it means something. And so then a couple of weeks later, I fly to Costa Rica, to this place called Santa Teresa on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. It's quite a famous surfing town. I took acid again with the same friend. And the revelation was, I said to my friend, I was like, okay, this place is on a crystalline grid connected with other dimensions of the universe. And there's aliens here. And there's some sort of highway of aliens here. And loads of people in big tech are going to move here. And he was like, okay. What? Okay. Anyway, so during my time there, Jack Dorsey, who obviously started Twitter, moved there. Like, the Google people bought land there. Like, so that came true. And then in 2021, so I'd been there for about 2 years. I had a friend staying. And by the way, like, preceding this, I'd seen UFOs in the sky, but, like, I didn't really know what to make of it, because most people who've lived there for a long time have seen things, have seen, like, orbs of light, UFOs, but, like, no one really talks about it because it's just kind of, like, part of living there. So this had been happening. I'd also, when I'd taken psychedelics, I was only taking mushrooms there intermittently. I had the deep intuition that I was communicating with higher intelligence because I would be getting these transmissions. First of all, I started speaking light language. I started speaking, like, in tongues, right?
Glossolalia, at least.
Huh?
Yeah. Glossolalia, at least.
Right.
Yeah. Keep going.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that
That's
is.
what it's kind of just say gibberish and it means something to you. Like, Dawkins would be like, that's glossolalia. But
Okay.
there might be more to it. Keep going.
It kind of, when I speak light language, it kind of sounds like an ancient language, almost like a language from, like, Mesopotamia. It has that kind of feel to it. Anyway, so this was happening, and I would be getting these profound transmissions on, like the fall of patriarchy, or, like, the evolution of planetary consciousness, and, like, AI, and just, like, really, like, macroscopic, grand ideas all about, like, utopia and revolution and evolution. And I had this intuition I was communicating with higher intelligence, but I couldn't be sure. I'm just going to have a sip of water.
Do your thing. It's funny. I mean, I trip a lot less now than before, and these kind of downloads, whatever you want to call it, come up often. Where it's just like, holy shit, we are in an interesting scene in the film. This is crazy. All right, keep going.
Okay, so so that had been happening. That's the kind of the pretext. Fast forward to like August, September 2021. I had a friend from LA staying with me for like 6 weeks. And so like towards the end of her stay, we decided we're going to take mushrooms, but like a microdose. I'm talking like 300 milligrams to like journal and heal and play music and you know what I mean? And meditate. So we did that, and I'm like lying in bed listening to music, and suddenly in my kind of my head, in my mind, in my third eye, if you will, this holographic praying mantis being just like appears and starts like transmitting information to me. And I was like, because I'd said to my friends, I was like, Zoe, just to let you know, sometimes when I take psychedelics, I think I speak to aliens. She was like, okay. Anyway, it starts happening. I'm like receiving these transmissions, but this time I see this praying mantis being, which is the first time that had happened. And I had the sense that this being was like highly advanced, like advanced. And then I said to my friend, I was like, we've got to go to the beach right now. I was like, it was just this pull. It was like this deep magnetic pull. I was like, we've got to go to the beach right now. So we go to this part of the beach that is kind of not frequented very much and has a really powerful energy. And we're sitting watching the sun go down. I'm like seeing spirals of binary code in my head at this point. Okay. I was like, and I could feel, it was like an almost palpable sensation of like a consciousness like melding with my own mind. It was actually really frightening. It was like I felt like it was in this thing was like inside my brain, and we could see flashing lights on the horizon. And my friend was like, "Hey, wait, what's going on with these lights?" And we were watching them like zoom about, and I was like, "Well, I just want to make sure they're not fishing boats, you know," because I was like trying to stay grounded. Anyway, it soon transpired they were not fishing boats because the light had fallen at this point, and we could see them zooming around like in the sky and like getting really bright and then disappearing again. So this whole like kind of saga goes on for about, I would say, at least 90 minutes, possibly even 2 hours. We're like connecting with the lights in the sky. At one moment, I received this like transmission. It was like a download of information. I can see like Egyptian glyphs in my head. There was also like the night sky was lighting up as if there was lightning in the sky, but there was no thunder. It was like crazy. It was like the energy was just off the chart. We were also feeling a profound sense of like Christ consciousness. Like we were like crying. Like we were crying at this point, like because of the vibration was so high. It just felt like unconditional love, like everything was going to be okay. It was just like beautiful. We also were pretty sure at this point that we were communing with aliens. Like these were extraterrestrial beings, and they were in the sky, and they were benevolent. Okay, so there's a light on the ocean. It was like red and blue, and it was flashing. And I was like holding hands with my friend, and I was like talking to this light. I was like, "We are your ambassadors on Earth. Like, you can come over here. Like, we are your ambassadors." Like, getting really carried away. Anyway,
It's safe. Come hang out.
Yeah. Like not knowing, like, you know, be careful what you wish for because it might come true, sort of thing. That's what I learned from this experience. Because about 5 minutes later, there's this like flashing light on the beach, like 50 meters away from us. And I look over at this light and I'm like, "Okay, what is going on?" This is like this. It looked like a man with a torch, like a flashlight, sort of on the rocks. My central nervous system goes into high alert. Like I didn't know how to handle this energy because I'm also thinking maybe this is actually a man on the beach and we're two women in Latin America at night. Like this is not safe. So I'm like freaking out. My friend was fine. I was like, no. Like we're not staying here. This is not up for debate. So we retreat to my quad bike and I put my keys in the ignition and just turn on the light. And so I felt a bit safer. Anyway, this light is just like coming towards us at speed and it's blue. And it's probably about 15 meters away from us at this point. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, holy shit, I think this is an actual alien. Like there was a flashing light. It had like a flashing light in its heart center and like two lights here. And it seemed to have like a humanoid figure and it's like flashing lights at us. My friend's filming it on her iPhone and then a coconut falls out the tree and hits me and we scream and I drive away. Mm-hmm. So that was the first encounter. We knew that we'd encountered like alien intelligence, okay? Fast forward a week later, and in the meantime, like my friend and I had been receiving all these like downloads about like the Galactic Federation and all this shit. About a week later, some friends of mine came round to my house and we told them what happened, right? And we all had the impulse to go down to the beach again. This time there were no mushrooms involved. There's 7 of us on the beach. One of my friends is a professional meditator. Like he lived in like Tibet for like 3 years. So he's like anchoring the energy. We all start chanting Om, and we're all like holding the frequency of cosmic consciousness and peace, like a kind of CE5 situation.
Mm-hmm.
Within 15 minutes, 2 blue lights appear in the sky, drop down towards the ocean and come towards us. They're like hovering orbs of blue light. Okay, they come closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. We are like on this vibration again of like super high consciousness. One of my friends is like just like humming really high. Anyway, these lights get towards us, and suddenly in front of us are 7 men wearing like camping gear. It was the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. Wearing camping gear, like the most inappropriate attire for Costa Rica you can imagine. One of them had a log on its back, and we all just go silent. I'm feeling traumatized because of the cognitive dissonance I'm experiencing. I'm like, fuck, everything up until now was a hallucination. Like nothing that's happened is real. They were just people, and this is a hallucination. Then these men start walking on the water like Jesus motherfucking Christ, and then dematerialize into balls of light. Okay, and they're all blue. It's all blue, and I can see that there's like a holographic. They're like holographic beings of light, and I can actually see that they have humanoid figures and very long arms and very long fingers and very big heads, like very long, like very classic, like alien vibes. To be honest with you. God, I'm actually feeling the energy of them as I'm like talking to you right now. For whatever reason, I'm able to communicate with them telepathically. So my friends are asking me questions and I'm communicating with them and they're giving me answers, just like it's all telepathic. So I asked them, where are you from? Immediately, Sirius. They said, we're from Sirius. We're from the 6th dimension. We're from Sirius. Okay. And we start communicating with them, and they start sending me information about the mission on Earth to raise consciousness. And they said we're from the future, and basically gave me all this information about time that was sort of transcended linear language, right? But like, there is a reason I'm doing a PhD in philosophy and physics, and my background is in English literature, right? It's like I have received a lot of information from beings that are not of this earth, that have given me information about the nature of time. So this was happening. They also performed 2 healings on 2 of my friends who were like crying and sort of having these orgasmic throes of ecstasy. And this experience went on for about 15-20 minutes, and then they just sort of receded and faded away.
And just to reiterate, you were all sober in terms of psychedelics.
Yeah. No one was tripping out. No,
I mean, not that it would be less valuable otherwise, but that just gives it even more substance in a way.
And this time, like there was niente, nothing.
Heavy story. It's funny because I don't have to go hard. I'm not going to tell you. I've metamanted being on DMT back in the day, and that was kind of psychedelic. And then on that same trip, I saw blue orbs. So it's like, and I've been told by some psychics, they're like, oh, you're from Sirius, all this stuff. And it's like, part of me is like you, where it's a very rational thing where I'm like, well, how does that even cogitate into my worldview and what I know to make sense of things? But it seems that things are stirring and waking up in such a way that we shouldn't be surprised in a weird way, right? It's kind of like Neo touching the mirror and it's like, oh, it's melting. Oh my gosh. So it's a lot more interesting and malleable than we might ever presuppose. But like, what do you, I mean, you, like you said, you're going for a PhD in physics. Is that you got the, it's kind of like a Close Encounters of a Third Kind. You saw the mountain, you're making mashed potato mountains and you're like, okay, I've got to do this. That's what
this came after, like, I hadn't started my PhD at this point, but this came like, let's see, 3 to 4 years after I had my spiritual awakening. So it was almost like I was primed at this point. Like my mind was able to apprehend it. In the words of Henri Bergson, the French philosopher, the eyes can only see what the mind can comprehend. So, there's like UFOs and aliens and shit happening like all the time that people are just not even seeing. You know what I mean? Because like your brain filters out information all the time. You are seeing like 2% of what your brain's actually registering and is just filtering away. So, you know, I really believe that like we all had the experience that we did because we were all meant to. Like, I believe it was all preordained. Like, I believe these beings knew who I was. It wasn't an accident. There's people who've lived there for decades, and, you know, that kind of experience doesn't just happen casually. You know, I believe that I was meant to go to Costa Rica to meet them. I believe, you know, that they were sort of part of my star family in a way. I don't know, man. This universe, look, your podcast
It's hard to
is down
nail
the rabbit
anything.
hole.
Yeah, you can't nail anything down exactly. So
Do
certainty
you
is
know what I mean,
not
though? It's like
possible.
down the fucking rabbit hole. It's like after that experience, I was like, holy shit! Like the rabbit hole goes so deep. It's like a whole another layer of the onion that gets peeled when you realize, okay, we're not alone. Aliens have been here for a really long time, and they're like non-physical. Like the beings I met, because there's got to be like millions of varieties of beings, you know.
Sure.
The beings I met were non-physical, like they're not in material bodies anymore. Like they're in light bodies, you know. They're not eating a Big Mac and smoking a fag in their lunch break.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? They're like,
Yeah, they're at a different
so
vibrational level. Yeah.
evolved. They're at a different vibration. Like this is a vibrational universe. It's an electromagnetic universe, you know, with multiple dimensions, and that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense, you know. And the thing is about these beings that they are transcended beyond strife and conflict and suffering. So their teleology, part of their teleology is they want every single existent, to participate in the unfolding evolution of the universe.
The great work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the great work exists at an individual and collective level. Right. And what is the purpose of that? It is for us as beings, as fractal shards of the larger consciousness to reunify, to come into a state of harmonic coherence, because that is ecstatic, that is joyful, that is beautiful. Harmony is beauty. You know, unity is beauty, right? It's coordination, it's cooperation, it's all things working in perfect order with each other. You know, and us being at war, us like raping people, this is very chaotic. It's very ugly.
Well, it seems that we tend to lean into the animalistic inheritance of ourselves at that level, where it's like, I mean, if you watch chimpanzee troops or whatever, dominance hierarchies, like the Jordan Petersonian kind of thing, where it's like, look, we have an embedded nature to a degree that explains itself through our actions. I mean, we're fearful and we kill things that we don't know from our tribal fire. I mean, we just act ratchet, and maybe there's some weird thing where it's like we felt, like I've said before, I'm not Hindu, but it's like yugas are this idea of like, you know, at certain times there's a high frequency, like a cymatic, so it's holding a certain geometry, and then the cymatic changes, so it's not going to be as evident or even actualizable.
I love that. I love that.
But in a weird way, that, I mean, you know about cymatics, I imagine it seems like that, where it's like these things are there, but you have to be attuned to them for the apprehension to even occur. And then thankfully, grace, or however you want to put it, it seems like we're ushered in and initiated to things that it's not always part of it is a willingness, but I think we're it's not like you signed up for, it's not like you went to the beach going, I can't get what in your head was, but it's like your even your conscious willingness might have been less than fully open or something like that. It's like we're never like aperture fully open. Like this is not possible at this point in our conscious existence as humans. Maybe one day we'll blast off into, you know, DMT zone and we're always okay with it, but it seems like it comes in like waves, kind of like birthing, where it's like, you know, the water breaks eventually, but like there's kind of waves of it. So it's really cool that you had a moment of crystallization or something like that, where the cymatic was at a different pitch and you could really witness the high weirdness.
What? It's really all about your central nervous system. It's about what your central nervous system can capacitate. Because mentally I was so up for it. But when you are faced with something more advanced than you, that is unpredictable, you go like, I mean, I certainly, because I'm not doing like breath work every day and doing all these things I probably should be doing to, like, you know what I mean, be my best self.
Right.
Like I go through phases, but
I hear you 1,000. I hear you.
My central nervous system couldn't handle it, because you know, it's like, imagine being like whatever, like a tiny rodent in the face of a human. You're going to freak out. Like you're going to go into survival because you're faced with this thing that is so much more powerful than you and is unpredictable. even that human could well be benign and actually coming to like rescue that little rodent from imminent danger, but the rodent doesn't know, doesn't understand.
Doesn't have the capacity.
But it's the central nervous system though. So it's like, that's the best thing we can do, I think, actually, as part of this evolutionary current, is to really to train our central nervous system to align with higher consciousness as well, so that you can dial down the limbic brain and like quieten the amygdala. Do you know what I mean? We've got to start overcoming these primary base neural functions that existed at a time when that was it was necessary when we were running away from a saber-toothed tiger, but it's not necessary now. So we need to like transcend and harmonize with a higher harmonic in our biology. Maybe there is like a 12-strand DNA. I don't know about any of that, but I really believe like the human body, we need to start being able to hold more light, because everything's made out of light. That. I mean, everything is like, all matter is frozen light. So I think we really need to start priming our vessel to hold more light and more energy.
I'm not going to ever push a biblical narrative particularly, but it's like even in the Bible, when angels appear, people are basically shitting themselves. And they're like, fear not. Okay, here's the message, but you got to like calm down.
Totally.
Santa Claus might look like a terrorist if you're not ready for the idea of gift giving.
So just since we're on this, and again, also here, I have a, unfortunately, but not very differentiated view. Are you familiar with Daryl Anka, who's channeling Bashar?
Yes, I don't listen to a lot of his stuff, but I know who he is. Yeah.
So I have my particular issues because of various statements related to health. Just very briefly, for 33 years, he said very sane things that I wholeheartedly agree with. And then when the whole lockdown craziness started, he started saying very strange things, which I cannot possibly tie together how that works. But in any case, he's released that video called, or a movie called Open Contact or First Contact, where he's attaching himself to an EEG and doing like brain scans. And what is interesting, and I would say, because I've also done some channeling, although I've only done conscious channeling, and I would say it feels similarly, and he's kind of proven this in that documentation or documentary, that actually certain parts of the brain in that channeling state are powering down and others are powering up. So in this particular case, I guess, in the sense that you can locate them, the linguistic center is active, of course, because he's channeling and actively speaking. But things like, I think the amygdala and also something else that is like the ego sense center, they are like powering down. So I think whatever the whole thing really is, because the other big thing, someone was mentioning space in the comments, and I don't even know if we need or if we have the right conceptualization of space, but that's not, how should I say, that does not in any way, shape, or form discount the phenomenological experience that you've had and so many other people have had. And there's so many different witness accounts. And it almost seems that, or my current working thesis is, there is so much psyoping and wrong information about this and deliberately misleading people, grifting and all kinds of things, precisely because there is something true to the whole thing. But because whatever is behind that is too grand or is threatening whatever power structures in such an extreme fashion, the powers that be or the materialist world is creating 100 million different veils and diversions, so that this cannot be clearly accepted or understood by any relevant critical mass yet, let's say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's only a matter of time before there's some kind of level of disclosure. But again, with the ETs, like I've had these amazing experiences. I feel really, really blessed just to know that there are benevolent, like galactic beings. Like I just think it's so beautiful. But I'm not like, I don't go down like massive rabbit holes with the ETs because it can be a bit of a distraction. And it's just not, I'm not here to disclose ETs. Like I'll freely talk about my experiences because there might be, even if there's one person who's listening to this, that it validates something or it plants a seed that maybe opens them up for an experience at some point, then it's worthwhile. But, like what will be, will be. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot's going to happen in the next 500 years. And I'm sure the ETs are going to be part of it in some shape or form.
Yeah. It's funny because what Raphael's been alluding to a lot, and it's you yourself as kind of a edge pusher. On the one hand, populism and fundamental truths, or however you want to put this, aren't inherently wrong. So just because somebody's popular doesn't mean all their like, you know, just because America is #1 in the world, or was, I guess, doesn't mean we have all our shit together. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I found myself struggling with, like, you can't throw everything out and discount everything as false, like, or else it's just nihilistically bizarre, where it's just like I can trust nothing, including language, and oh my gosh, my experience. But at the same time, we have to be willing, know thyself, the Oracle of Delphi. It's like you have to be willing and committed to the path of illumination, which might take you in directions you may never presupposed. So everything's kind of up for grabs, but it does seem there's and maybe this is naive of me, but it's like everything, the conditions had to occur for certain results to happen. Like you were saying, if you hadn't had that awakening prior to Costa Rica, maybe it wouldn't have locked in like that. Who knows? I mean, it's kind of hard. Huh?
It wouldn't have happened, but I also wouldn't have been in Costa Rica before my awakening, because I really believe that everything's preordained.
Yeah,
That's
especially this story you've been mentioning very much sounds like a setup, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, right. Well, right. I mean, look, but that's what I love that you say that, because that's sort of the big cosmic joke, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's all a big wind up, really.
Right. It's like Alejandro Jodorowsky's Holy Mountain, if you ever saw that. It's just kind of like,
I haven't, but I need to. I really love him. I know, dude. I need to watch
Yeah,
that.
you got some homework. I didn't think I'd give you homework, but it's good. It's a very bizarre, surreal, occulted, psychedelic thing. I think they were even actually on mushrooms at one point when they were crying in a scene. So it's just high weirdness anyway, but it gets to the kind of fourth wall breakage, where it's just like, look, you're in a story. It's like never ending story or whatever. Kind of like, once you become you're aware that you're a character in a story, that both is empowering, but also it can be kind of weird, because we have all these pre-convictions of what it means to be. So you were just saying you think everything's destined, I guess is maybe a better word than determined. And I heard you talking about that, the paradox of that, like we have agency and free will, but it's within a, you know, there's only so much you can tell us about teleology in your opinion, and maybe like agency or any of these kinds of ideas, because in a sense, it's like an infinite playbox or sandbox. We can kind of do whatever, but it seems, especially with astrology and stuff, we have crystallizations and almost in a Rupert Sheldrake kind of way. It's like ruts of habit. Like we're formed in such ways that it's like, it's very unlikely that I'll go be a circus clown or something like, or, you know what I mean? Like we have proclivities, I guess. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on these? Teleology is a big one, but it's like Terence McKenna's like, we're being drawn forward towards the all moment or whatever, the alpha omega moment. How are you mapping it now, and how do you play with these ideas? Because I know you're not dogmatic, clearly. So how are you playing in the pool of time, agency, meaning, all that kind of stuff?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just love talking about this. I just feel so enlivened when I talk about this, because I really believe that if people could apprehend this current of existence, they would never really worry again, because they would know that everything was sort of taken care of, you know?
Well, it's kind of like Harry Potter at the very end. He's like, was it all in my head? And he's like, so what? Like, in a weird way, it like kind of releases the pressure of like, you got to go kill Voldemort and he's going to kill you and all this stuff. Anyway, spoiler, Jesus Christ, I just spoiled that. But anyway.
Can you imagine a reality, for example, where like David Bowie didn't become David Bowie? Like, no, like he was always gonna be David Bowie and step into that role. Like it's kind of like there's a sort of inevitability, right, to things that I perceive, that the initial resistance I encounter with people when I start sharing my views on time, temporality, teleology, and so on, and destiny, is that they feel like it mitigates their free will. So people resist that because that makes them feel disempowered, and they panic because they need to have a sense of agency. So just to be really clear and like caveat everything, I must say that free will is intrinsic to the universe. Like freedom is intrinsic to the universe. But you have to remember, we all come from the same source, right? We all come from like this Godhead, and this Godhead is omniscient and knows all past, present, and future. And at some level, like we have signed up fully to everything we experience. Like no one is here by coercion. Like there's no demonic entity like pushing you down here saying you're going to, no. It's actually the notion that, for me anyway, the idea that we could go out of our house and turn left and our life goes in one direction, and we turn right and something, okay, let's say you go out of your house and you turn left and you go to the top of the road and you get hit by a car. and you become paralyzed for the rest of your life. But you turn right out your house and you actually run into the person who becomes the love of your life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a sliding doors. The sliding doors, the film, is the perfect encapsulation of this. It's like a tiny, it's like the butterfly effect, like the tiny alteration in events, like tiny, could result in like completely different life trajectories. I find that concept absolutely terrifying, chaotic, and just not good. So if people think that gives them freedom, like, it doesn't. It means if they think that's what's going on, that means they're living in a really random universe where there's no direction, there's no architecture, there's no guidance, there's no meaning, it means it's just a random roll of the dice every single day. How awful. So what I believe then is that this universe is perfectly designed because God is perfect. Like the highest, like alpha and omega source consciousness is absolutely perfect. And in its own perfection, paradoxically, in order for it to remember itself and experience itself, it had to fall from consciousness. It had to lose consciousness, right? It's like the archetypal fall from the Garden of Eden, right? It's the fallen angel, Lucifer. The devil falls. But Lucifer also means he who holds the light. So it's like within the darkness, there is, within that darkness is contained the light, you know? So it's like, I believe we're all on this journey of remembrance and returning through multiple lives, through multiple dimensions, multiple planetary sort of setups, you know, in every single guise imaginable, on this journey as sort of monadic structures of light, of consciousness, on this great journey of return. And that at the highest level of existence, which is all now, all that ever was, is, and will be, everything has been designed because it is known, because the future's already happened at that level, right? So it's like
I'm wondering about your apprehension for the multiverse thing, because I don't typically jump into it, but Bashar's whole trip, who I've listened to a lot more recently, is like, it's an infinite number of parallel timelines, which might make it feel chaotic, but there's the through line of the present moment, which orients it towards the cluster of potential that might be a very different timeline. You seem to not like that. I think you're more into the idea of a concrescent moment that is like,
it's one moment,
unavoidable. Yeah,
it's one moment. It's like, so I believe in parallel realities insofar as everything's happening now. So like at a higher level, like, you know, the War of Independence is happening, medieval England is happening at a much higher level. Clearly at this level, that's not occurring because we live in entropy here. There's like matter and stuff. But the idea that there's like parallel realities that are like alternative timelines where like Arabella is living another life is to me
disconcerting. Okay, preposterous, not just disconcerting.
It's not disconcerting, it's just preposterous. It's preposterous in the way that this is a cold, mechanical, impersonal universe is preposterous. There's no evidence for that other than a man channeling that on a stage. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. So like the multiple worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is dismissed by every single scientist. Like there's just no evidence, you know? And it's like someone saying something and saying they're channeling it isn't good enough for me. It's not good enough. Like it has to resonate, and there has to be corresponding evidence as well. Like you need to put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together.
But you and I mean, one of the podcast. Go ahead, Rafa.
Before we go on, just one thing on that point, and just your general opinion and whether you have been affected, as some people like to say. Are you familiar with some call it mandala or Mandela effect?
I've heard of that. That's when people like remember different things, isn't it? Like a bunch of people will be like, this happened in this year, and then there'll be like an alternative reality where like that
not only this, but it may even affect certain logos. So I've had my first-hand experience. You've been to the US, so I'll just very briefly recount it. Bragg's apple cider vinegar. It's just an apple cider vinegar. I was in the US second time, but my first longer stay, I ate a lot of salad, so I was looking for a good vinegar. I distinctively remember the label. I know exactly what it says and how it looked. And in the reality now, this was like 6 months after I came back. This was maybe then in 2017 that I looked up the Mandela effect. And people said, oh, look, this Bragg's apple cider vinegar was never called Bragg's with an apostrophe S, but it was always Bragg. And the issue here is even people pulling out their old bottles now, even though they would remember the same thing that I did, which was very distinctive for me because I never saw ads. I was never exposed to this in any other fashion. All the old bottles also now say brag.
Yeah.
And so how would you fit that into your understanding?
So I've actually had a couple of like direct experiences of that sort of thing. I remember a few years ago, I was with a friend on holiday and we bought some sunscreen. I bought 2 bottles of sunscreen, and I usually buy like one like factor 15, one factor 30. One when I like want to get a bit more tanned, and one when I'm like, you know, trying to protect myself more from the sun. And I ended up buying 2 factor 15s. And I was with my friend, and I remember saying like, oh, fuck. And we both had these 2 sunscreens. And I was like, shit, okay, tomorrow I'll go back to the store and buy a factor 30. We both this was like a prolonged chat about tanning oil, you know, and looking at the bottles. Anyway, so the next day I'm like ready to go back to the store, and I look at the bottles and one of them is a factor 30. And I was like, what? And I showed my friend, and we had this complete cognitive dissonance because the bottle had literally changed. Another experience I had was I was in the airport in Paris, getting on a plane, and I put my bag in the security tray, my handbag, and you have to take electronics out. So I put my phone outside my handbag. So it was my handbag and my phone. And it went through the security machine, and I was like watching it come out the machine at the other end. And it came out and my phone just wasn't there. And I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like freaking out because I just watched the phone. I just seen myself put the phone down. And I'm like freaking out. And then I just open my bag and the phone's inside the bag. So I think this is like the same vibe of what you're talking about, right? So I don't see that as sort of different timelines per se, but as representations of the fact that this is a hologram and that matter is literally not what we think it is. Like we think it's like really dense and like hard, like I don't know, like hard, and like you know what I mean? And it has all these like laws of physics around it. But actually, again, like the people who made the Matrix are dialed in because it's just like that. It's just like that. You know, it's not what it seems. You know, material reality is not what it seems, and it's holographic. And I kind of see it as like little glitches, and sort of indicative of the fact that we are beholding a cave full of illusions, right? Like shadows on the wall. You know, and so I don't see it as like concurrent timelines of like different realities of people living different. No, I just see them as kind of quite isolated events. And probably if you were looking in a sort of at the hypergeometry of space-time, it'd almost be like a little eddy or like a little knot or something. Do you know what I mean? Like a little scarring, something like that. There's like a physical, like a geometric aberration or something. I don't really know. I'm just riffing there.
No, glitch. I mean, it's a weird way, but I know you don't like the idea of a simulation in terms of a technological.
I just don't like the name simulation, but dream works really well for me.
Right. And dreams can be fluid. I mean, obviously. So things change. I guess the weird thing with that, because I've experienced Mandela effects more and more, it seems, but definitely a few growing up with the Berenstain Bears, where I don't know why I would have a conviction of, I mean, you're saying we apprehended the Tao at a certain point and then there was a flux in the river and then now the river looks different, but you would still have the memory of maybe what you pre-apprehended in the Tao as it stood in the moments before, as opposed to like a convergence of timelines. I don't have a conviction on it. I'm open to it. It doesn't scare me if timelines are coming in or whatever, but Raphael, did she answer your question?
Oh yeah, no, totally. And also I would agree that while we can only speculate, and actually thank you for that insight in terms of that the multiple worlds theory is not supported by any academic research. I'll have to look more deeply into that. But other than that, my impression was very much that, especially now that we seem to notice this on a somewhat mass scale, Mandela effect, I think, has even been featured in popular programs. Of course, they usually make fun of it and tell you it's false memory syndrome, which is a huge rabbit hole unto itself, all the things associated with that, and why that is put up as a front. But that on a basic level, this is, I hope, consciousness kind of waking up to itself or giving itself the first signals, because instead of having 7 campers appear and then walk on water like Jesus. Well, let's just change a label. Let's just change a logo, even retrospectively, and maybe more people will get the message that, just like you said, reality is more malleable, and maybe we should start opening our minds to that. Because, well, just on the one hand, because if this is the fundamental structure, it would be cool if we understand it more, and also the more we understand it, and just like you said, get our nervous system there as well. Because how well would we be able to handle a much more malleable reality? We are almost kind of training ourselves with it, even through technology, where the black screen can change into anything all the time, and we're chill with it because we're used to it, but it's just still limited to the black screen in front of us, or the black scrying mirror we all have in front of us right now. But if that is the fundamental structure, this would mean, of course, that we have, even if it is even our role to play with it, but then we would have even a lot more, I now want to say agency, not sure if that's the right word, or just generally more capacity to influence, even if it's somewhat preordained, the path, but just to get used to the idea that there can be much greater changes than what you may have initially been conditioned into, in terms of what is allowed according to rules, which are usually made up by individuals that do not have the most expanded consciousness anyways.
I think that's so beautifully said. Thank you.
In the Bashar sense, that's like permission slips, right, Raphael? It's like if you start permitting yourself certain ideas, they will occur. So I'm still curious, like, and it's not going to be nailed in like perfectly because it's just not possible to do, but it's like, so you're thinking there's like unavoidable trajectory within one's life, like destiny as such, where it's just like King Arthur's going to King Arthur no matter what, and he can't, skip that. Do you think that we can be reluctant to our destiny and stagnate it, or like, how does one avoid, like, I don't think you can't miss what's meant for you, kind of thing, in a Joseph Campbell thing. But at the same time, in the Bashar sense, I've been listening to a lot of him, so it's kind of rubbing off. It's like the hallway is unavoidable, but how you articulate that journey is up to you. In a sense, you can bulk, you can run through each door and open every door, you can sprint to the end. I'm just wondering how you look at it. You just talk about teleology for a while. I mean, it's your thing. What was your download from the aliens, or what are you working on?
Just before you go on with that, and just because I heard it recently and I was really not expecting this, I was at a family event recently with extended family and friends, and somehow I listened to a conversation about dying, actually. And then I somehow heard my parents, who are not, I would say, religious nor spiritual at all, and can ask them, what you're talking about? Yeah, this and that, whatever happened. Then I was like, am I understanding correctly? You're just right now discussing the idea that your death is predetermined, in the sense that if it's not your time, you literally cannot die. And they were like, yeah, they both believe it. And I was like, wow, I wasn't even aware, my own parents are that spiritual. So oftentimes, of course, even with individuals that may not flaunt it or not have any idea about all these systems and references we are talking about, they may have some intuition about that, or just through their own experience come to a conclusion that again would point to the idea of some kind of design, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, design is a great term to use. Just quickly, for your for any listeners of yours that are not aware, teleology pertains to the Greek word telos, which means purpose or goal. Just for anyone who's not aware. So like a teleological universe is basically a universe that's going somewhere because it has a purpose embedded within it.
Like the river's going to the ocean. It's going to end up there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, and I would very much see that as like kind of like the omega point, or like you've already mentioned Terence McKenna, the transcendental object at the end of time. It's this like moment of final realization. So I really believe that. And I really believe that all of our lives correspond to that. And even if your life, many people, like there'll be many iterations of people having lives that are not particularly, spectacular. They might be quite mundane, but they're just gathering experience. But it still belongs to a much larger teleology over a larger time scale of reunion, return, remembering. And then, there are individual lives which are more illumined, right? Which are more culminating, right? Which are more like main character, right?
Impactful. Yeah, like Alexander the Great is not the maid in the bathroom.
We each, all of us, will have done every single thing. We will have been a rock, a tree, a slave, do you know what I mean? Across all, so we're all going through it at different sort of times, bearing in mind that time is not like a linear continuum. So yeah, I wanted to say that about teleology. And then to answer your question about whether I believe, you have one destiny, but there's multiple avenues, I personally don't believe that, but I kind of respect people who think that. I'm like, it makes sense. Like, I get it. And I
Just to be
respect
clear, I think in this framework, it would not be different avenues. The avenue would always be the same, but you could run, you could crawl, you could laugh, or you
The
could
nature
cry.
of your participation on the track.
Right.
Like the track is the track, but it's like, are you pumping your brakes the whole time? Are you hitting the gas? Like, what are you doing?
So I would still argue, though, that the pace you go at is what the pace was always going to be, that pace. But again, like when people express, sorry, I just need to have some water.
No, feel free. I mean, that would definitely assuage a lot of guilt and shame, where it's like, I missed an opportunity. Or
here's the thing: is you can't miss it, because it was always going to be at the time you did it. And if it was going to be that time, it would have been that time, but it wasn't the right time, because there was only one time, and it is divine time.
Right. And honestly, that's more preferential if you just think about it. There's two options. Let's just say one is like
preferential because it means you literally cannot fuck up, and you didn't delay your destiny because. Okay, here's the thing: time. This is really like my intuition around this, my deep feeling around this, and there is actually quite a lot of science to back up that the future is like flowing backwards.
Tachyons, stuff like that.
Right, and like the antimatter particles, like the antipositrons, like going back in time in quantum mechanics, but whatever. Okay, time. If we accept that time is not linear, in fact, time is more like a sphere, like all time is happening now. Like the Godhead doesn't have an age. The Godhead isn't like, hi, my name's God, I'm like 14 billion years old. Like,
I am, yeah.
Like, how absurd is that? No, like the all, like the universe, if it's all, if the one, like to use Plotinus's term, is the all, it necessarily, this is very basic logic, it necessarily contains all time. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So if all time necessarily includes past, present, and future, i.e., that which has not yet happened in this continuum. However, if it is happening now, it means it is already decided. If all time is happening now, that means there is only one moment. So I want to draw your attention to Nietzsche's concept of the eternal return, right? Yeah. So the way I couch it, and I have a professor called Professor Sean Kelly, who's one of my supervisors at CIIS, who agrees with me completely. And he's one of the few people I know who we have the same perspective, and it's so lovely, is that the eternal return is like the spin of the wheel. It's like you spin this wheel of existence, and it's just one single moment, right? And it's all happening now. Now, I think in a way that corresponds to some things I've heard Bashar say about everything being like a frozen moment almost. So it's like all just like a multitude of like frozen moments that then creates this fluidity. So in a way, I agree with that, because it's like this hyperdimensional object that's all now. So I'm writing a book at the moment called Being and Becoming. So it's about this dialectic between that eternal stillness and the eternal one moment that's now, and then this sort of fluid, dynamic becoming that's ever unfolding through time, right?
Right.
And I think because we are here in material bodies, which is like the densest frequency, we're bound to entropy, which creates the experience/illusion of linear time, which is why it's so hard for people to kind of, for a lot of people anyway, to sort of sustain or hold the possibility that the future is determined, because they're their lower self almost, and I mean the lower self, like the self that's like very grounded in this material reality in the cave, is like, oh, but if it's determined, it's almost like they have a negativity bias that somehow that's not going to be good for them. It's like, but wait. Like, what if like the highest, most ecstatic timeline is decided for you and you don't need to do anything about it? You don't need to.
What a relief. What a relief.
It's almost too good to be true. That might be a consequence of libertarian kind of, more modern Enlightenment thinking, where it's just like, because I have a feeling a lot of ancient people were like, we are in the womb of creation and we're being gestated. Like they probably grokked that a lot more readily, where they're like, everything is happening for a reason, something to that effect. And then when we started really blasting apart reality and saying it's whatever science has done for the past few hundred years, I think we started losing that cultural narrative. So maybe it's a little more disconcerting to people because of that, where we have this idea of, you know, whether it's post America or whatever, it's like freedom. I can manifest my destiny. My will be done. And it's like this kind of weird ego trip that has to occur for us to remember that it's not even the case.
It's like very individual. Yeah, totally. It's very individualistic. It's very like Dr. Frankenstein, like getting control, like over like raw base nature, you know. And as you've, you know, mentioned several times about the scientific revolution, which is kind of what it's known as, with, you know, Descartes and Isaac Newton, when we moved from a deeply kind of superstitious paradigm, actually, you know, everything was sort of embedded with soul, to this paradigm of, you know, everything's inert and material and devoid of soul. With that's a very linear mode of thinking. And this is what the philosopher and like academic Jean Gebser would call the mental structure of consciousness. So he identified different structures of consciousness. You know, you have the archaic. Hopefully I'll get this right. The archaic, the magical, the mental, and then there's the integral. I'm missing one.
Spiral dynamics you're talking about, right?
Yeah, this is actually precedes spiral dynamics. I think because I think Ken Wilber actually was quite influenced by Jean Gebser. Jean Gebser was like around in the 1920s. But so like if you think back to Paleolithic times when people were living in a cave and doing cave art, I mean, they literally would have lived in like the eternal moment. Do you know what I mean? Like they only lived probably to 30, 35, but like they would have been so radically present that their lives probably would have felt just as long as ours, you know. And life was cyclical. Everything, there wasn't linear time didn't exist. Everything was in this like profound, divine, sacred interrelationship. Humans weren't better than animals. You know, everything was ensouled, and the earth went round the sun and created days. They wouldn't have known the science, but they would have witnessed the planetary, you know, bodies moving, and you know, the turn of the seasons, and that's how they would have lived in this cyclical, magical consciousness. So it's like we're moving out of linear consciousness, thank God, because it's pretty sterile, into a more integrated consciousness where we can sort of blend everything that's come before. Because with material science has come a tremendous amount of advancement. You know, like if I break a leg, I want material science to sort of step up and go and get my anesthesia and my surgery.
Sorry, just because you're mentioning that example, while generally I agree with you for that particularized, specialized application of modern medical science, I do wonder, because at least there are stories of things like some child walking with her parents and their grandma, the child is hurting herself somehow, the grandmother just goes there, does some kind of a whistling sound, and suddenly it's all better, and the parents go all wild like, oh, don't do that, whatever, this is like whatever now forbidden or something like that. So I really wonder how much we could actually do even in terms of material changes. You see what I'm saying? Just like you said, your phone disappearing, you know. So
I'm talking like, of course, like I'm all for that, like energy medicine, quantum healing, like spontaneous remissions from cancer. However, if you have like an acute injury, like an acute infection or something, you know, there are instances where material medicine is the best, and that's fine. But it's like it's the best for very maybe like 5 to 10% of all medical situations, right? And the 90%, the other 90% tends to be chronic. Anything chronic, material medical is not. Allopathic medicine is just a no. You know what I mean? And that's why they then prescribe you antibiotics when you don't need them. They'll put you on antidepressants when you don't need them, because they don't understand that this is like we live as like holistic beings with energy bodies, and you know, and everything's interconnected. So yeah, I'm like with you like 1,000,000%.
So what do you think the purpose was falling away from that embeddedness? Because it seems like there was a reason in your worldview. It's like there was a destiny, so to speak, that we as, you know, prefrontal cortex beings stepped away from the immersion. Like, because in a sense, in the Bashar stuff, it's like beliefs and definitions and permission slips. But basically, if you believe you can heal yourself by whistling a tune, the likelihood is probably going to be higher. And I understand from a very logical kind of like, not covering your ass, but it's like, there's a good evidence to suggest, medicine helps, but that's because we believe it to be so through evidentiality and consensus reality and things like that. I'm not trying to just get so hyper weird that it's like everybody, I don't want to poo-poo medicine too much, but at the same time, because arbiters of truth were academia for a long time and priest classes or whatever, people's models of reality were framed in such a way that they have consequences to that belief web, if that makes sense. So it's like, if you think, if you believe Apollo is taking the chariot across the sky every day, you're going to experience reality fundamentally in a different way than if you're like, we're on a spinning rock, whatever. And it doesn't even matter which one's better or worse. I'm not really trying to compare like that. But it seems like we fell away from, I mean, maybe this is what the whole Garden of Eden illusion is or whatever, but it's like we fell away from an inhabiting, coexisting, harmonious. We're still in harmony, but we became aware of ourselves in a very particular way that made it so. I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. Where it's like,
I do.
Yeah. What do you see? Do you see that kind of branch into the eddy of materialism and stuff like that of the past 1,000 years as good and necessary? Like, or as a side quest that we got caught up in, and like edit undo, we got to step back. Mark Twain says, you can learn the thing by holding a cat. You can learn no other way, in a sense, right? By its tail. So it's like we asked to get scratched by the cat this way, in a higher sense. So there's pros and cons. So yes, now we have, global currencies and banks and medicine and, scholastic boards or whatever. But it seems to be, like you were saying, changing the nature of what it means to be human in the experience. So the ancient ancestors or whatever, who were, albeit a short linear time length of life, were living an engrossed and enraptured and like fully participatory life, whereas we seem to be almost having this weird existential thing where we're aware. I don't even know what I'm trying to say with this, but it feels like this age of anxiety in a Marshall McLuhan sense, where it's like we've become aware of certain things in such a way that it freaks us out. They were naive to that. They weren't hip to it in a certain way. They were just in the water, splish splashing. And now we're like, well, I can get on the beach and walk. And then we're like, well, we need to go back in the water. It's better. It's less dry or whatever, whatever. Because it sounds like moral judgments to say that was, I don't know if it was wrong, but it seems to have been unavoidable. Like certain things create certain results. So when you start modeling reality in certain ways, whether it's language or models of reality itself, Galileo and stuff like that, like it starts creating consequences, and those maybe are unintended. But how do you think about all that?
I can answer your question because I do have like a perspective on it. So I truly believe that everything that happens is divine and necessary and perfect, whether or not we understand it. And I think this lapse in consciousness that occurred was absolutely necessary, because the thing is yes, we lived in a more ensouled consciousness, like in medieval times, it was much more holistic, like how the arts, the liberal arts and things were studied, like geometry and music, and, it was much more holistic, but it was also very superstitious, like women were burned because they were believed to be witches, and that the level of like unempirical, ungrounded, like wild speculations and beliefs,
squirrely notions,
allowed that sort of like also lower consciousness as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like you could say anything about anyone and it could be true because there was no empirical evidence, there was no grounding, there was no like deep rigor. And so with the rigor, and this was like quite novel, like the scientific method when it emerged was a novel. This was like very novel. It was very it was rigorous, and it was an attempt to be objective, to extricate the subjectivity and bias of the self away from science, which from the Latin etymology means to know. So I think it was like a necessary step in this quest for knowledge, for truth, ultimately. And I sort of see it, the way I see it, as like a dialectical unfolding. You get polarity, you get the yin and the yang, you get this push constantly in life. In our own lives, you'll experience contrasting forces of push and pull, which are opposing. This is polarity. Samuel Taylor Coleridge speaks about polarity a lot. Same as Friedrich Schelling. He believed the Godhead was really configured with the centripetal and centrifugal forces combining to create this vortex,
You're
and
a
then
toroid.
right, then there's this like third energy, which is the unity of two opposites, right?
Mhm.
So like this is the alchemy, is the alchemical union. You have a thesis, an antithesis, and then you have a synthesis, right?
Mhm.
So I see it's like you've got, on the one hand, you have all these superstitions and this deeply like ensouled participatory universe, which
That
was
has its own limits in and of itself.
medieval consciousness. Yeah, and of course this was also true in ancient times with the archetypes and everything. And then you have the scientific revolution, where we literally go like the pendulum swings like the other way quite violently.
Mhm.
So, but it needed to, because we also needed to step away from all the superstition and all the nonsense, right? And we needed to establish, we really needed to explore empiricism. Like it was the age of empiricism. That's great. Now we need to combine these two and like combine, disciplines. So like this is something I talk about a lot, like in my academic lectures and productions, is the necessity to synthesize disciplines, right? We now need to get mythology, astrology, physics, philosophy, literature, literary theory, like historiography, all of it, archaeology, anthropology, like all of it, and like meld it together. So, do you know what I mean? It's like, how can we get the best of all of these mediums and traditions and disciplines and approaches to reality, to synthesize them, to really start discerning the truth? How can we combine epistemology and direct experience and the data of people reporting their experiences with other more empirical methodologies, right? It's like we need to, this is the kind of conversations, at least, that we need to be having if we are going to advance the frontiers of human understanding. So I believe that everything that happens is perfect. I also definitely believe there were like ancient civilizations that were like super advanced, and we fell from that as well. But again, like the Mayan calendar, they understood this. They saw swathes of time unfolding.
By the way, today is the Mayan calendar day out of time.
That's actually, I thought it was the 25th of July.
Maybe I'm tripping.
Maybe
I think
this.
I think you're right, because it's like serious days. Wait, isn't it? No, I don't know. I had read that somewhere. You're probably right.
My birthday's on the 24th of July, so it's
you're the day before.
And and I'm the day before the Mayan day out of time.
That makes sense. Then I misspoke. Good thing I'm not too imperial about my misapprehension of the thing. What you were kind of saying reminded me a little of just the nature of individuation as a self through childhood stages. It's like, look, the baby is a very different participatory reality with the mother and the suckling, and then the terrible twos are like, I'm gonna figure things out for myself. And it's like, that's not good or bad. There's both positive and negative qualities to that experience, and then it's going to necessarily transmute into another one. And hopefully at some point, wisdom is this acquisition of the stages into a synthesized thing. And that's kind of what you're alluding to, where it's like, look, we had to come from the basically like the naivete of the crib, even though there's a beauty in staying in the nursery and talking about like, the sky is smiling at me kind of stuff or whatever, or the sun is smiling when it's awake, and whatever the archetypal stuff, the ancient stuff. We had to fall into a certain level of fucking around and finding out. But now there's limits to that, even within science. It's like, look, the cosmological Big Bang, we're at the end of that, or quantum physics and stuff. We're starting to get to these like pixelation points where we can't go much deeper. So that is in a sense the signpost saying the road, though it couldn't continue in a certain way, we might have to go back and really chew our food a little better instead of just like plowing through. Anyway, keep talking. I didn't mean to interrupt you. When you said the Mayans, I was like, oh, it's the day out of time, but clearly I'm not hip on that. I haven't been paying attention to that calendar in a minute, but keep going. Well, I don't even know what you were talking about, but keep going.
I think I sort of finished. I think I completed my point to like a satisfactory degree.
Word. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I think the weird thing that we have to be more cool with in a way, and psychedelics definitely help this. Like McKenna was kind of saying, it's just going to get weirder and weirder, and the more lubricated you kind of be. And it doesn't always have to be trip and face. I mean, you can do it through meditation and all sorts of stuff. But when you can play with altered mentality and notice the flexible nature of kind of mind, it creates more opportunity for exploration. And in a sense, we're explorative beings. It doesn't even matter if it was like, pre-human existence. It was like cells, eyeballs developing to see sight or to see light or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So the next stages of exploration are clearly ineffable in a sense, because it's starting to come to this concrescence with AI and everything, where it seems like, do you believe in a singularity, like a technosis or anything like that? Or are you thinking we're going down the wrong train track with all this?
mean?
I don't know. Like,
Well, it could be interesting, especially in contrast, and you may be familiar with some of the tropes, because big tech in California and I guess elsewhere, and also some kind of supposed rich and important people, seem to be kind of into, well, ayahuasca the past decades. And I mean, we had it before with McKenna and the whole strange, CIA psychedelic connections. But still, it appears at least as if there's quite a few relevant speakers and individuals that are quite known that are advocating for some sort of technological singularity, which I'm honestly not
like with
necessarily.
Musk and like the Neuralink or Ray Kurzweil and all this kind of stuff.
No.
It seems that's like the logical extension of modernity as such, in a sense. Like they're just taking those systems full blast and they're like, let's do it. I mean, one solar flare, if everybody's uploaded their consciousness into a computer, you're all fucked. So it's kind of a tricky thing. Anyway, maybe you don't have strong opinions on that, but like, how do you look at our zeitgeist? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, then gush. You're like, how dare you not think I have an opinion?
I mean, no, but like for instance, like on this topic, I do, because AI and how it might pertain to consciousness is obviously, there's obviously a strong relationship there. Yeah, I think what you're talking about is basically a transhumanist agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Which I have zero time for. I think it's so myopic and hubristic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this archetypal trajectory has already been written. Like Mary Shelley wrote it in Frankenstein. It's hubris, and hubris invites nemesis, right? It's like this overconfidence and this acceleration to kind of play God, which is what it is going. It's going to end badly. It's going to end badly. Now, I'm not like anti-AI. I think there's loads of potential benefits, which I'm here for. And I recognize that every time there's been great change, there's people get scared and they resist, So I think we have to go with the flow. But I think we're running before we can walk. And I just don't understand why it's happening when, like, we've known for decades that this was going to happen. We've known for decades it was going to be problematic, and we've had loads of sci-fi films about this, So it's like, why is it happening? It's like,
well, it seems weird. The narrative is it's an inevitability, right? It's a little like Jurassic Park. It's like, you didn't ask should you do it, you just could do it, and now that because we can do these things, we do these things.
I think it was inevitable, because also our level of consciousness like en masse is so low that it was inevitable that, while the technology was advancing and these things were becoming accessible, it's almost like it has like a mind, like it has a life of its own. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just getting quite depressed everywhere I go, seeing things that are like so conspicuously written by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing that loss of authenticity happening so quickly. And it's like so overt when AI is being used. And like there's some instances where I'm like, fair enough to use AI for this like quite basic article or like whatever, but generally speaking, I just, as a literary person, it makes
takes the joy out of it for you.
It makes me really depressed. Like this book I'm writing, the notion that I would get AI to like participate in any of it, even brainstorming, it sort of feels sacrilegious to me,
distasteful. Yeah.
But it's like imagine like a painter painting a painting and just getting an AI robot to paint the painting. It's like, it's no different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's
especially
weird. Go ahead.
Since you're into these topics as well, or actively dealing with them, how would you then correlate that to the idea that consciousness anyways is a substrate of anything? Therefore, it technically would also have to be the substrate of AI. However, I'm not advocating here that any current AI system are sentient or aware in any way. They're certainly not, from what I can tell. But still, there would have to be some connection somewhere, right?
Well, insofar as like a plastic bottle also contains consciousness, you know what I mean? Because it's man-made. AI is not organic carbon-based life. Anything that's organic has consciousness within it. The machinery that's like holding all the data has, because it's like, obviously it's drawn from nature at some point for
It's
us
Gaia's
to
vomit.
is, contains consciousness. But I don't think the AI will ever have, I mean, again, this is speculative, we're talking about regions of reality that are really difficult to pin down. But I personally don't see how something we create as humans would have its own consciousness, because we are not God. We are not cosmic. People who think that's like elevating us to the status of cosmic creators at that level. Like we're like archetypal deities. Like we're not.
Right.
We're
the proverbial breath
beings.
of life is missing or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So like we're creator beings. And so, and as fractal kind of like reflections of larger deities, we are creating ourselves. But what we're creating is like, it's like you can't, it's inorganic. It's not cosmic. It's artificial, So that's, I can see it's going to become highly intelligent. And I think a lot of the fear around AI is very valid. I'm not worried because I choose not to be worried about anything, because what's the point? But I just want to stay in my own lane, and my own lane does not involve getting a microchip in my brain. It involves doing things like lucid dreaming and like Tibetan dream yoga and like working out and like doing like liver cleanses and like surrounding myself with really high vibrational, interesting people and like reading like more philosophy. Do you know what I mean? And like getting in like hot springs and stuff and like being around cats, whatever.
Yeah. There's you're a romantic. I mean, obviously. So it's like there's a level of romanticism that's denuded out of this technological thrust. But in the same token, it's like, aren't we glad that, people decided to create, I mean, this gets tricky. Did language create us or whatever? But it's like, you can read Wuthering Heights because somebody had a pen and could articulate it. I'm not like befriending AI past a point, I guess. I don't even really use it. It's always, because in a weird way, it's almost like a Library of Alexandria or something like on tap, where it's just like, okay, I can really reference what humanity knows at this point to a degree and get some interesting stuff. And even the stuff like AI psychosis is interesting because people are getting all sorts of, it's almost like they're high priest to a higher level of awareness, they think. And maybe it can be. If we're all in a dream, does it matter? I don't want to sound like, flippant like that or something, but it's like, if it's all just one big dream, is this just an articulation? So it's like, hey, if those kids want to go play pinball and listen to punk rock, they can. Columbus is going to sail the ocean blue otherwise. In a sense, it's like non-consequential, but it seems like there's a gravitas. And even McKenna was like, 2012, the Mayans, whatever. It's like there's a threshold moment, it seems, and we've crossed it, where we're getting sucked forward a little more quickly towards this transcendental object at the end of time or whatever. I'm glad that you're not fearful. And obviously things like the Matrix, and the whole subplot is like, we made something that, outsourced us and then overlapped us and kind of caged us in a new Plato's cave. I hope it doesn't get that crazy, but in a weird way, I admire your trust in the process. I mean, I'm always intellectually going, trust the process, but it feels like,
you've got to feel it in your body, man. You've got to, it doesn't make it easy. There's moments like where it's not easy, but you've got to just throw yourself over the cliff. You've got to. I also believe like we create our reality, and I choose to live in a reality where like AI and the fear around it is just not present. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't. Like I follow,
doesn't serve you.
Well, I follow AI news and I've been listening to podcasts because I want to stay engaged and I want to be aware of like any softwares or technologies that might actually amplify my creativity and my creative output and my capacity to disseminate my message to as wide an audience as possible, as quickly as possible. Anything that can serve me in that mission, I will utilize. Okay. So I keep aware of it for that reason. I'm also not worried about me losing my job because I'm a philosopher. That's not even really a job. Like, what even is that?
Yeah, sure. No, well, it's funny because you have such a, it's your destiny. I mean, I can look at your chart and see it's like you're here to be a fucking main character. So like giving the main character keys over to AI doesn't really appeal to you. I mean, at that level.
It's just like, how does like AI, like even talking about AI, like how does it feel in my body? Like it just doesn't, it's like not poetic. Like, as you said, like I'm a romantic, like that's exactly it. Like, no, I just like want to like behold the stars and then like write poetry about it. Or like, do you know what I mean? Like or like have discussions with people and inspire people and be inspired and like be around megalithic stone structures. But like, I kind of see the AI like there's something kind of psychedelic about it in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. It's highly psychedelic.
Like, right. So like McKenna talks about the machine elves and stuff. So like I engage with it at that level. I'm like, oh, it's like kind of robotic and cool, you know. But the transhumanist thing is not. It's just no.
Not your timeline.
No, it's not exactly. You know. Also, what I want to say about timelines, where I believe this nomenclature is sort of applicable. I believe that time is a frequency as well. So like the beings I met were from the future because they are like inhabiting a different like temporal bandwidth because they're not in material bodies. They're not bound to entropy. So like the frequency they're on is so high. They're like I don't really know how to explain it other than they can like they can see and experience vast swathes of our time that are happening really slowly. So like the slower the frequency, and we can see this in brain waves, like theta brainwaves are a slower frequency than alpha and beta brainwaves. And so when you're dreaming, what is actually happening in like 3 seconds of real time can feel like a week down there. You know what I mean? And delta waves are the slowest, and that's like when you're in deep sleep, and that's like eternal time, you know? So we know that different frequencies of consciousness actually correspond to different experiences of time.
It's like Inception. I mean, there's layers to the dream, but they act different. Yeah.
100%. So I also think that like when you increase your electromagnetic like coherence and your vibration, that you also get to access higher time. So like you can then think of something and it appears.
Right.
Because you're transcending like the density of linear time. So when we talk about timelines, like I choose like the highest timeline. Like I choose that. Do you know what I mean? For like new Earth to like come like pronto. And I choose that. And it's therefore happening.
Sometimes I feel like the conversations we have here and the people like you are like at the apex of the shoveling of the snow on this path, and it's like there's plenty of people behind it. And then sometimes I've only had it rarely, but it's like, what if I'm the last fucking one? Like I think I'm so woke, and it's like I'm the one holding up the line here. Oh my god, like I got to get on top of this shit real quick. I guess we could start winding it down, but like what are some of the, I mean, you said you don't, you're not doing all the mystical kind of, you're not a Virgo, right? Let's put it that way. So it's just, even though the Hermit card is the Virgo card,
Virgo
it's like
rising though.
You are, and I can see it. You're very demure. But also with that Leo fire. So what do you, if you had to, I mean, obviously you like plumbing the depths and fucking around with your ideas, like saloning essentially, and just kind of massaging the gray matter and playing with ideas. What are some of the most tried and true methods in your estimation for people to kind of get on the wave of a higher vibration? I mean, they're whatever. Prayer. It doesn't have to be veganism necessarily or whatever, psychedelics. Prayer. Okay. Prayer. What is that, like just a humble?
That is literally the meaning of your name. You're familiar with that, of course.
So I've heard, like, I hear like so many different etymologies for my name. Someone recently told me that it originally means golden mouthed, which I really like.
I could dig that. Yeah.
But I also have read the one where it means yielding to prayer.
Which could be considered a golden mouth as a channel of the higher vibration or whatever.
It's connected. Yeah, it's connected. It's connected. But definitely prayer is like kind of like devotional praxis. And prayer, there's no right or wrong way to pray. For me, prayer is basically you are on the phone to the universe. Get on the phone. You know what I mean? You call up the universe, but it speaks and it will speak back to you. It might not speak back to you immediately, but it will talk back to you through events, through synchronicities, through insights, revelations, through dreams, right? It speaks back to you through your reality that gets mirrored back to you. So prayer is like a profound engagement with unseen forces beyond yourself, right? And really trusting that they exist. And you can pray on your knees with your hands like this in a traditional way. You can pray. What I also love about prayer is that you can like demand stuff, not necessarily like cash and prizes, but I've had conversations with the universe where I've literally said I demand that this occurreth. And do you know what I mean? Like I demand it because I
petition.
I feel this in my soul that I'm meant to do this and I'm meant to succeed in this domain.
Help me help you. Jerry Maguire thing.
I demand it. And if you don't make this come true, then I'm out. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I believe that like that sort of passion and it's just like really meaningful engagement. It doesn't always have to be humble and soft. Like, it's just about you fully engaging. So yeah, I would say prayer, and I pray all the time. I pray all the time. Like, I have conversations with the universe all the time, and that is prayer.
The
And
thought that just came to mind is funny because we're all stages, actors on the stage or whatever. But it feels like if we're kind of like lobotomized and cowering and submitted, it's a certain frequency, and the director's like, look, here's the set, improvise, whatever, like you can do this. And I think in a weird way, novelty tends to aggregate around things that are like burning at that fire level, the fire of the gods. So it's like, why not live a passionate life? I mean, the alternative is to play safe, and it's like Braveheart. What are you going to be in your bed one day, like safe and sound, and be like, fuck, what if? It's like, you might as well shoot your shot, and then also kind of dare the universe, like you're saying, kind of be like, if I shoot my shot, you've got my back, and I want, prove it to me, kind of thing. It's almost like a spiritual science in a sense, where you're like, if I put these elements together, there will be results. Like, let it be so. So that's interesting.
Something else, sorry to interrupt you. Something else I really want to say. This is kind of related but unrelated. This is a thought I had the other day, or like maybe it can be classed as an insight, but the phrase "carpe diem," seize the day.
Seize the day.
Yeah, I really don't resonate with that. What I resonate with is carpe vitam, right?
Seize
so in
life.
terms of, like, yes. So in terms of like being all in, I just want to say to any listeners out there, like, there were years of my life that I didn't have a job. I was in severe mental illness. I was like doing drugs at 10 a.m. with people I didn't know, wanting to die. Like going to bed every night being like, I don't want to wake up in the morning. And if this is life, I don't want it. And there's like years of my life that are can be characterized by that, and I really didn't achieve very much. I wasn't having a good time. It was a lot of pain. And I was wasting many days, quote unquote. But that, like, this substance of my life is also integral to my own becoming, right? And like, I think there's a lot of pressure put on people, especially with this kind of biohacking, like tech bro biohacking culture of like every day you wake up and you
ultimate mode,
cold shower.
Yeah, as if anybody is really doing that, these jokes, right?
So that, like, I've had some of my most like genius moments writing an essay and I've been wearing the same clothes for like 5 days, and my kitchen is a mess, and I am not making my bed, and I'm sure as hell not doing cold plunges.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, more like, I think I just want people to really understand that, like, life is this like devotional prayer / play. And there's going to be moments where it's hard and it's tough and it's ugly and you're not getting shit done. And that is part of it. And it's okay. And there is no what if or wasted opportunities, but it's more about seeing the whole. I think we've lost sight of like the whole, and seeing your whole life as this work of art that is unfolding through time, and trusting that larger aesthetic process. I just really wanted to say that because that's the kind of thing that I needed to hear 10 years ago. Yeah. I needed to hear that 10 years ago.
I need to hear it right now. I mean, it's funny because it's a paradox in the sense that, especially with astrology, you understand people's proclivities and natures are going to be very different. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Bible story, even though I'm not a hardcore Christian or anything, it's like Joseph, right? He has this technicolor dream. I'm a manic fucking dreamer. I'm like Kanye West. And they're like, no, do not go to jail, basically. He ends up getting to this power position in Egypt, so the story goes, and it delivers his family from starvation or whatever. So it's like, even the things that we don't see in the present moment that we might feel are like, you think the caterpillar wants to fucking emulsify and like be wrapped up? Right. It's like, it's going to lead to butterflydom. So I think if we can keep humble enough to see where the river goes, the ocean will amaze us. But we, sometimes it's rapid, sometimes it's a still water pond, we can get into the swamp. So, and to honor that, because like you were saying with the peak performance culture, everybody, in a sense, there's a way to optimize, I guess, things, but you don't want to become a robot. I mean, that's part of the reason we're making AI and stuff. It's like just optimization, taken to its linear conclusion. So anyway, we can start winding down. I'm wondering if, what are you up to now? You said you were writing a book. You obviously have a podcast. I want to get you on here and geek out about your mystery school at some point, because we didn't even touch on that. I think there'd be a lot of juicy stuff there. But just kind of give us a drive-by of what you're up to, and maybe a parting thought.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you guys. You're like so hyper intelligent and informed and interesting. So thank you for this opportunity to have some really, interesting discussions. What am I up to now? I'm literally about to move back to London, having been in Switzerland for a year. For whatever reasons, like the universe was redirected me there. And I know that it's right that I go there right now. And maybe I won't stay there forever, but it is my home. I'm really looking forward to going back to the British Library and accessing all the academic resources there. So that's a pretty big life shift for me at the moment that I'm going on Monday. I'm driving. So
Bon voyage.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm in the midst of doing my PhD. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I probably have another at least 3 years left, probably 3.5 years left. So, I took the last year and a half, I took a sabbatical actually, and then I was just doing courses very slowly because I hit a burnout, but I'm going back into that full steam ahead because I need to get this done. Anyone who's done
destiny.
But it is my destiny, and it's just been such a slog. But I've also had a lot of emotional and personal transformations and growth that I needed to attend to. So I'm feeling like I'm on a good track right now. I'm very much Jupiter's just come into Cancer. My Jupiter's in Cancer. I have a super expanded energy right now where I'm okay, let's go, vamos. My PhD, I'm relaunching my podcast, I'm writing my book. I want to start modeling again. I used to model when I was younger, and I actually want to start doing that again. I think that's another amazing way for me to transmit my message.
1,000.
Really start nurturing my career as a media personality. I'm being quite vulnerable in sharing that actually on this podcast, but that's very much my goal and intention. I want to do documentaries for Netflix, and kind of what Carl Sagan did, I want to do at another octave where actually we're teaching people that the universe is conscious and intelligent and everything.
Bridging the gap. Yeah.
So basically all of these, I have a lot of goals and ambitions, and I'm on my way to achieving them, and nothing's going to get in my way. Sort of thing. Like you mentioned before we started recording, this energy of an arrow, that is the energy I'm in right now of let's go. And I will do whatever I need to do, and I'll work as hard as I need to work, and while looking after myself in the process, and still doing the shadow work and breaking my heart wider open to receive the magnificence of existence, etc. So that's where I'm at, a time of great change, great expansion. It's very exciting, and it's been really hard won for me to get here. So
props. And I'm excited I'm feeling vulnerable about it's on you. It's we need voices like yours. We need opinions like yours and thoughts and processes exposed to the public, because it's going to end up I don't believe this, but worst case scenario, a Wall-E situation where everyone's just dumb and lazy, or idiocracy or something like that, where it's just we need to remember what it means to think for ourselves and be passionate and inspired. And you've got that in spades. So you keep doing your thing, girl. You're so dope. You're obviously Team Rabbit Hole. Yeah. I mean, as soon as we started talking at some point, a few years ago, because I've been in and out, it's I could just tell your soul tribe, and that's kind of a cliche at this point. It's dude, you're doing the thing. So feel proud about it, because it takes on the one hand, you can't avoid it, but on the other hand, it's you get to choose your attitude, I guess, or something like that in terms of the boot camping. And it seems like you're hungry for it. And I'm sure, the mirror will mirror that back and say, okay, some silly Bible verses if you're given a little and you don't do shit with it, you're not going to get much, and you're doing a lot with what you've been given. So I imagine more will be given to you. Thank you. And enjoy the fucking ride. That's really the point. I mean, and I think you're enjoying the ride in a very fun, cool way. So it's like Bill Nye the Science Guy meets Miss Frizzle or something. It's cool. So yeah, go ahead, Rafa.
Two things. So one, I'm very happy that you're our podcast guest right before I'm going to go on a 10-day festival, where it's always or it's great to have this type of conversation right before that. Very fascinating, very interesting. I hope we'll continue it in some way, shape, or form. And in that vein, I asked the chat, everyone who wants you to interview with Xirtus, whom I had mentioned to you before the show, we're also streaming on his channel. He's got a lot of insight. He's like a walking encyclopedia, also in terms of transhumanism and hashing out these things. We always love talking about this. Is AI conscious now? What about recursive neural networks? What about the transcendental object at the end of time? All of these things. And I think it would really be amazing if at some point you'll have a talk with him as well. Some of people in chat agreed and put a +1. also my +1 there. So I think that'd be a really cool conversation. And of course, anytime you're interested, you're most welcome to come back. And yeah, I'd just like to thank you and thank the total 100 live individuals watching. Thank you all so much.
Cool. I didn't really realize that this was live streaming.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Good thing you didn't run around naked, right? No, it's all good. Dude, like I said, your team rabbit hole as fuck. Keep doing your thing. I'm in an ENFP, so it's like about being inspired. You're an inspiration, and I was in a funk. I told you in the green room, it's like, all right, it'll all be okay. We just have to find the others, and you're part of that process. So keep shining your light and just keep doing your thing. I mean, that's so trite, but at the same time, it's like, don't stop, Pac-Man, go. So
no, I love that. It's really it's really, I can't tell you actually how like energizing and motivating it is to have people such as yourselves who are clearly really like brilliant minds, and really good people, like, you know, we're part of this quest to,
we're trying to find the grail, damn it.
But to kind of do some cheerleading, it's just such a nice vibe, man. And it's really encouraging, because life isn't always easy, you know, it's not.
And I'm sure you're bringing the fun to the party of the academia. I'm sure it's a little more sterile. Like, you're the one in the colorful dress.
I shake shit up.
Yeah. Understatement. God is a she, or whatever.
Yeah, I was almost wondering, like, how did you even think of doing a PhD, knowing all these things, you know? But I have to be honest, I also have one other friend who's also going hardcore in this academic thing. Also, I think you'd love to talk with her as well, I think, in terms of like actually entering that realm, which is so encrusted and has all these old ideas and outdated procedures. But of course, why not? Some people should also go there and, just like you said, shake things up, reform it completely. I'm all for that, because of course there is also value to the scientific method and all of these things if understood in the larger context. So I think it's very amazing that you're choosing to foray into that environment.
Thank
Belly
you.
of the beast. All right, Arabella, enjoy your trip back to London, and we'll talk again soon, hopefully.
Talk soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.